I actually have a great temperament, and I have a temperament where I bring people together, and that even means countries. I mean, I don't think I'll have the problems with Putin that Obama. Putin can't stand Obama.
All right, Donald Trump said. Well, let's just start right there. I don't have to say anything else. All right, let's get started with this edition of The Political Animal. Let's welcome back the veteran Republican strategist who secretly sleeps with his copy of The Art of the Deal under his pillow every night, Ford O'Connell, joined by veteran political reporter at The Hill who fights for truth, justice, and the American way in Washington without tights or a cape, which makes him something of an endangered species. Kevin Cirilli. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Kevin, I'm going to start with you. Here we go. Like I said, Donald Trump said, here's the latest. I'm not going to appear on Fox News. Then earlier today, he says, well, wait a minute. Roger Ailes and I are going to get together and we're going to discuss next week. Kevin, stop me. This is a reality show. This is scripted. This is bad television. This is just going exactly. This is the Real Housewives, just with a couple of guys working. Yes or no?
Well, I think that I would just say that Donald Trump essentially is continuing his war against the mainstream media. He tries to position himself as a political outsider, and I think that this just is indicative of a larger frustration that the Republican electorate feels with the political establishment right now.
Oh, come on, Kevin, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to make you go ahead and say it.
He's a presidential candidate, no longer a reality show host. If he's going to actually win the Republican nomination, he's going to have to break bread with Fox News. That said, what he's really in dire need of is a second act to his reality show, because he's not going to be able to run out the clock and win the nomination before the Iowa caucuses if he keeps this nonsense up.
But let's also be fair about...
Regardless of your opinion about Mr. Trump, I think that to political establishment types like Ford O'Connell, as well as his Republican establishment political consultant
that'd be nice
types,
if I weren't neutral in this crap shoot. Good job,
takeaway
Mr.
is that the establishment is not really aware of the frustration that people have with Washington, D.C. outside the Beltway. And for too long, Ford, I think people have juxtaposed the notion of being a moderate and being an establishment type. And I think that you can hate Washington and also have modern political views.
I'm just sitting back and letting you guys go at it here because, I mean, you're running the whole thing here.
Because what's happening here is Trump is hacked off about the coverage that fellow outsiders Ben Carson and Carly Fiorina are getting. This has nothing to do with political insight.
But why is he hacked off of that coverage? Because he's not saying anything, Ford. Everybody will tell you. Look, and here it is. Marco Rubio basically put it best today when he took a shot at Trump, and I thought it was brilliant. He said, basically, he had a really bad debate performance last week. He's not well informed on the issues. He really never talks about issues and can't have more than a 10-second soundbite on any key issue. Ford, Marco Rubio just nailed it.
I agree with Senator Marco Rubio here, but what Senator Marco Rubio doesn't understand is that we have a very large field, and this is a personality contest, and that's where Trump is actually lapping the rest of the field. The question is, do we get to the substantive phase of this campaign before we reach the Iowa caucuses? And that's why Trump is literally trying to knock everyone down, keep them out of the news, and unless he can actually get back on Fox News, he's going to have a very hard time doing that.
Well, that's another thing, too. And, Kevin, I got to come to you on this one as well, because let's face it, Fox needs Trump, Trump needs Fox. It doesn't make a difference. It's all about television. It's all about ratings one way or another here. I have a lot of respect for Roger Ailes. I got a lot of respect for a lot of people in this business, but let's be honest. This is business. This is about ratings. And if you look at this, this is two guys basically setting it up for a ratings show, and it almost looks like a brilliant pre-plan. These are two guys sitting around a bar one night going, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll get mad at you one night. You send your attack dog after me. I'll do this, then you do that, and then we'll go ahead and we'll make up. Yes?
Well, you know, I think Ford just made a pretty good point. I'm surprised to say that. But, you know, I do think that the American people are starting to get past this summer. And as more attention is focused on this presidential race, you're going to see that the electorate is going to be hungry for someone who has not only personality, but also the political and policy chops. And to Mr. Trump's credit, you know, I interviewed him for 40 minutes the other week, and I got to tell you, he talks about things like corporate inversions. He talks about currency manipulation. And I think we in the media, to be quite candid with you, Ed, we got to do a little bit of a better job at perhaps directing the conversation into that. The last presidential debate, I got to tell you, it was the night before Janet Yellen made the most important Fed policy announcement about raising the interest hike or not doing that.
I'm going to give you that much. Kevin, I'm going to give you that much because I think if Donald Trump ever appears on this show, I will say to him time and time again, Mr. Trump, please answer the question. That's what nobody seems to do, and that seems to be the problem. If you just say that, maybe he will say something, but he doesn't answer the question. What's wrong with that, Ford? Don't you want him to
You're absolutely
answer
right.
it?
He doesn't answer the question because he doesn't have to answer the question because everyone's so concerned about the ratings. What the journalists need to do is actually band together and force him to answer questions. And if you do that, he's going to have to shift his tactics and get a second act.
All right, now here comes the second thing. I only got, hang on.
Need to do, especially establishment types, is to recognize that people are hungry for a fighter and not someone who's scripted and the same old politician that we've seen for years.
I understand that they're hungry for a fighter, but obviously there's other people that understand what's going on here too, like Carly Fiorina and Ben Carson. I understand that most Republican primary voters are pissed off at the Republican politicians in Washington and want anyone other than an established politician. But at the same time, we're also letting down the American people.
Okay, I love it. I only got about 30 seconds left. Kevin, I'm going to hit you first. Is this the slow beginning of the end for Donald Trump as Carly Fiorina comes up and Marco Rubio comes up and the numbers are starting to shift?
I'm just going to say that I think that Mr. Trump is going to be a continued force throughout this entire presidential cycle. Just like any reality star, he had a great first season, but the ratings are starting to dip. And I think that we'll see people like Senator Rubio, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, to some extent Kasich, start to really surge. And Carly Fiorina is one to watch as well.
15 seconds to you, Ford.
Absolutely not. Donald Trump has shown himself to be an incredible political strategist over this time. What Trump has to worry about is if the field actually narrows significantly. If it does, he's going to have to find a way to get beyond 25% support.
All right, now I just want to let you guys know that one of these days we're going to put you guys back together again, and I think what we're going to do is we are going to have a couple of beers at this one. We're just bringing beers and pizza in here, and that's going to be a show that we'll do a half hour out of. Ford O'Connell, Kevin Cirilli, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. Always a pleasure. Here we go. We're talking about Donald Trump. So is Donald Trump still your choice as far as you're concerned? Here's your chance to tell us. Tell us about your GOP candidate for 2016, who you think is the guy. And also, while we're doing that, we'll talk about maybe some of the other candidates down the road as well. Stay with us. The fastest 60 minutes of news, The Hard Line, will continue.